This playoff season, there's only one place where we'll bet, and that's Fanatic Sportsbook. Yes, they're our presenting sponsor, but it doesn't make sense to bet anywhere else if you're a sports fan. Because when you bet, you earn fan cash, win or lose, which means that your bets get you closer to accumulating fan cash for authentic jerseys, hats, memorabilia, and much more. Winning just hits different with Fan Cash. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut residents call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts residents call 888-327-5050. New York residents call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland residents visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Hello and welcome to all of you nervous, angsty New York Knicks fans and anybody else who decided to join us. That includes you, DJ.
Yes, it does.
Welcome to another edition of the X's and O's Knicks Film School live show / podcast. A pleasure to have you all. I am, of course, joined by the detail junkie, the doctor of jump shots, the defender of Julius, who, by the way, defend away. Look at that guy playing ball. Love that. And I have one more acronym for you, DJ. Of course,
Go for
DJ Zullo. DJ can also stand for the following. Detroit's no joke. Detroit's no joke. We're going to get into all the X's and O's of the series, the first two games. Of course, the Knicks tied with the Pistons 1-1 as the series moves back to Detroit. A lot of angst in the air. A lot of nerves. Fair enough. We'll talk about all of it. But as the bottom ticker shows and the breaking news of the day, and might as well touch on it briefly before we really break down all of the details of the series thus far, which I think has been an interesting series, and there's a lot to talk about, and we'll get to all of it. But first, as I know Macri just had a emergency live stream, Jalen Brunson has won the 2025 NBA Clutch Player of the Year. Congrats to the Cap. Deej, quickly, just like thoughts, initial impressions on some nice Knicks news in an angsty time.
Yeah, it kind of felt needed, right? Cleanse the air a little bit, though maybe not fully, completely. And I thought listening to John do his reaction just an hour ago, basically, I thought it was interesting based on, for the first time, and John alluded to it, Brunson taking some hits from the fan base, not in a extreme way, but just some, you mentioned the angst, the concern regarding his floor game in game 2. So for him to obviously get this award, I think is interesting. But it was obviously well-deserved. I mean, I think Jokic was second. Brunson clearly, based on the regular season, deserved this award. And you did a video on this on our YouTube channel regarding some of his best moments. I think he added a couple since you made the video. He had the type of year where you just expected every shot where the Knicks were either within 5 points or up, down a little bit with 2 minutes to go, that he was going to make the shot. Many of these shots were contested, hard shots that you just don't expect to go down at the rate that he ended up making them. So huge honor for him based on him pulling the Knicks across the finish line in some games they probably didn't deserve to win. So shout out JB, and hopefully he can carry that over into game 3 with some clutch moments in that one.
Yeah, I mean, we'll break down Jalen Brunson's floor game, as you put it. I think it's a great way to put it in terms of what's being critiqued is the floor game. What's funny about game 2 is it's not like he didn't have a very successful fourth quarter and did drive the team back with some of those very clutch shots we're talking about and gave them a chance. Now, not every decision was perfect, and he missed his classic walk-up 3 that he's made a bunch of times this year on that right wing that would have tied it at the time.
Tied the game. That was right after the Schroeder 3 on the previous possession.
That's right. He came right back down and tried to answer, and he's earned the right to take that shot. What's fascinating about the timing here is I think the fan base collectively is right that he probably needs to dial it back, including in crunch time, if not especially in crunch time, because it was too much. It was, I think, undeniably too much JB in game 2. And so how does he dial it back while still putting himself in the best position to score? Because they're going to need him to score a lot of points. But the team offense needs to find some kind of traction in the series. And right now it has none. It is buttonless, as I'm going to put it in a grade book that I'm going to publish tonight. Like it's not clear to the Knicks right now what buttons to push to get quality looks. Like they don't know where to go. It's not just that guys aren't involved, is they don't know what action to run to basically put themselves in a position to get a good look. And that's in contrast to me, and this is the difference in the series thus far that is tied in games, but I think we'd both agree, the Pistons have been the better team through 2 games. And to me, the reason for that, if you really boil it down, is the Pistons have buttons to push. That they know they're going to get something out of bringing Brunson into the action, for example, for Cade Cunningham. Like, the Knicks have not done a great job guarding that. Brunson specifically has not done a great job guarding that. And they know if I bring Jalen Brunson into a screen and roll, I'll probably find some kind of gap. Whereas I don't think the Knicks have a button to push right now that is as comfortable as that one for Cade. What are your thoughts on that?
There's that. And, if I run Malik Beasley off a screen, I'm going to get 2, sometimes 3 Knicks to react to that. And then we can play off the gravity that he is providing despite a lackluster shooting performance in game 2. The Pistons, you can look at, the Pistons scoring 100 points in game 2 and say, and the Knicks defended well enough to keep them in check based on the box score. But also the Pistons, they were 3 of 21 on catch and shoot threes, 1 of 11 from the corners in terms of 3-point looks. They got good shots, to your point. The Cade Cunningham piece, it's the Brunson, and I think it'll be a nice conversation. Hopefully we can get into it regarding maybe some adjustments the Knicks can make to sort of mitigate the impact of Brunson being brought into these actions. Because in game 1, there was a lot more big screenings where you can have Towns and Mitch high at the level impacting things. The Pistons did some of that, and Mitch specifically was excellent in game 2. Again, I thought impacting it high at the screen. But the Pistons, for the most part, went away from that. And it was more Brunson, more Cade off the ball where he can throw it, run to the catch, and then he's got all this momentum. And Anunoby's got to navigate 2-3 screens at a time. And then he's got Cade Cunningham now with momentum downhill. Much tougher cover versus loading up with a big as your support if you're OG Anunoby. So the Pistons certainly have more buttons to push. And on the Knicks side, it's if you take away the pain shot making game 1, the transition that they got out and ran in game 1 based on turnovers from Detroit, this has been a really poor offensive performance in these 2 games for the Knicks. They probably do have other areas that they can go to, but I think the credit probably has to start with how Detroit's defending, their physicality, their toughness. Every action the Knicks run off the ball, they are top blocking and they're preventing it, either a clean catch or they're eliminating the catch altogether. And it just makes the Knicks have to grind and claw for possessions, which I think leads to Brunson.
Or by the time that they catch that off-ball movement, there's 10 on the clock. And how many times they'll try to initiate with Bridges, who's not a great ball handler. So with any pressure, it's going to take him a bit of time to get up the floor. And by the time Brunson wrestles with Thompson or Schroeder to get open, there's 10 on the clock. And all you can run is a Brunson isolation, maybe a pick and roll if you're lucky. They're taking them out of all of that stuff, and it's making things really tough in the half court. You're right to credit the Pistons. You're right.
Very tough. Now, do you want to get into maybe where the Knicks could go to offensively? Because I think I would agree with you. Offense is probably there's concerns on both ends. I think the offense is probably where it's most alarming.
Yeah. So let's start there. Let's start with when the Knicks have the ball and the offensive side of the ball. So, I think Fred Katz had a great piece about it today. We've been talking about it all year long, DJ, is this idea of a wing on Cat, what it does to the pick and roll between Brunson and Cat, which was for the large part of the first half of the season, the foundation of an excellent offense. And when you put a center on Josh Hart and you put a wing on Cat and You can play off of Josh Hart, or you may be able to switch to pick and roll, and we'll talk about that. So these are the reasons you go away from Cat in the pick and roll. You bring Josh Hart into the action to attack bigs, but now Cat's basically a spacer. This has been an issue that, again, like people are talking about it like this is new. You know, the way this works is the national media swoops in during playoff time and like makes these observations that obviously we've been making all year long. Like Charles Lee did this in preseason. Charles Lee had a wing on Cat in the preseason. Now, it became ubiquitous in the second half of the year. Every team did it, where it was about half the teams in the first half of the year. So, yeah, it caught on like wildfire once everyone kind of realized, hey, this is how to guard the Knicks. But the question I'll pose to you is, because I think Cat not getting any touches is the big story, and probably rightfully so. So we'll start there. Let's not the only issue offensively. We'll start there. What are you doing, DJ, to get Cat more involved in this offense? Not just in crunch time, definitely also in crunch time, but throughout the entire game.
I think it has to start with the post up. And I understand there's a limit to how well you're going to be as an offense with Karl-Anthony Towns posting up. He is passing out of that double team. He doesn't see the floor in the same way. Maybe it's a vantage point where if he's not facing the basket, it's just harder for him to sort of see where the help is coming from. Teams are generally doubling him from the baseline, which again is going to make it tougher for him to be able to see where the double is coming from and where the outlet is. But I think you have to maybe hope the Pistons don't send aggressive help and that Towns against Tobias Harris, who he has had some success in these two games, can generate 10, 12 points out of post-ups and maybe raise your ceiling a little bit. Draw a couple of fouls. Get him going. There was the Boston game, the fourth Boston game, where he scored a ton of points posting up smalls against Boston. So he's capable of doing it. And in the playoffs, where the ceiling requirement for an offense is so much lower, I think it's a viable option for the Knicks. And I think that is where I would start. The other area I think you would have to look into is just how do you get Cat driving downhill? One of the ways, and they did it almost accidentally in game 2, where you can have an inverted screen or have a small screen for him.
Yes, I wrote about that. I saw you tweeted it out. I also have it in the grade book. That was like a little impromptu Brunson screens for Cat. And what do you know? The defense breaks down. They find a wide open Deuce McBride for 3. It was probably the cleanest 3-point look they had all night. All night.
The cleanest. And Cat, who has been fairly criticized for his lack of passing out of these drives, made the perfect read, 3 bodies around him, kicked it out to McBride. Now the shot didn't go in, but the process, I'm looking at this, I'm like, all right, why can't that be a source of offense? I see Evan Mobley do this 10 times a game. Karl-Anthony Towns maybe is not quite that level of passer on the move, but he is a lot to contain when he's getting downhill. He's going to draw attention. I think that, again, to your point, the way I saw it too, I don't think this was in a designed action. This was, Knicks didn't have anything going. Brunson was like, all right, I guess I'll screen for you. And they got something out of it. Maybe they fell into something there, but I think those are the 2 areas I think where you can maybe take advantage of his skill set.
Absolutely. On the post-up point, like, we've been talking about this all year also. Like, for some reason, the Knicks post-up package is basically just Karl-Anthony Towns trying to create post position by himself on a wing who's pushing him out on his back, and the catch is often very shallow. It's often a catch, and then he's got to do a lot of work just to get into shooting position. And they did it a little bit when Brunson was out. They ran a lot of wedge screen actions to try to get him catching on the move into the post a little bit deeper. And I don't for the life of me understand why that can't be part of the package. It doesn't make sense. Why are we making him work so hard just for a catch? And when he catches that shallow, it allows the defense to load up. It allows Duren to sneak in on that baseline. It doesn't allow you to have any flow whatsoever out of the post up. If you let him catch it on the move just a little bit and a little bit deeper, I think you could create some really good stuff. And it frustrates me to no end. And I'm hoping that they reincorporate some of those wedge screen actions that got some better catches when Brunson was out. I just that's a frustrating part of the post-up thing to me, but I agree with you. There has to be more post-ups. Cat has forced his way to the middle, even as Tobias Harris is trying to force him baseline, because you know what? He's got like 70 pounds on Tobias Harris. He's much bigger than Tobias. Now, Tobias is a strong dude, but like, hell, Cat can do some stuff in that matchup, but you got to make it a little bit easier for him. And that's on the coaching staff. Like, they have to draw some stuff up.
the wedge screening, the other benefit of that is if Harris tries to beat him to the spot, you've seen Cat just pop out, and then you get an open three. So there's a trickle down effect of what you get him on a couple wedge screens, deep position. Now Harris is trying to beat him to the spot. Cat pops it, which he's done several times, at least from my memory this season. You get a catch and shoot three, which of course we all know has been, a main problem in terms of the volume here. So I don't understand why they just completely went, sometimes I guess when you're coaching and I've coached in I'm coaching 10, 11-year-olds, but you get wrapped up in the moment of a close game. And you sort of like, you're so honed in on the ball and the thing that's happening in front of you that you lose perspective of what the bigger picture is. And the bigger picture was in game 2, if there wasn't someone else supporting Brunson, it wasn't going to be enough. And that's sort of how it played out. But I understand how you can sort of like fall into this rut of just like watching it unfold without like seeing the bigger picture. And I think that of all the things, I think Tibbs can get a little bit too hyper-focused on what he's seeing versus thinking like 2-3 possessions ahead and like, all right, how sustainable is this? Brunson, head fake, draw three. The things that he was doing, it didn't look like he was going to be able to sustain for a full quarter. It needs to be part of the action, and you just have to draw it up, and you almost have to force feed the big guy and just hope he can get some rhythm there.
Yeah, I mean, I think philosophically, I think it's a fair critique. I think every possession to Tibbs is how do I get Brunson the best opportunity to make a play? And so that basically means that since he's more comfortable attacking bigs and drop, whoever is the center's guarding is going to be the primary screener. And it's just never a thought of like, how do I open someone? Now he'll run a scripted play for OG every now and then, and he'll put in his token bridges, pick and rolls, that he'll try to hit a mid-range jumper over a drop, which he got one of in the third quarter and missed. And like, that's kind of like let's keep the wings happy stuff that he runs. Mm-hmm. But if Cat, once in a while, they ran that baseline screen action where he'd go. They kind of stopped running it. First half of the year, it was in the playbook where he'd kind of come around to the corner off a screen and try to get a catch and shoot opportunity out of that. Otherwise, Cat has had an unbelievable offensive season, despite the fact that they don't run anything for him. That it's basically his screening. It's basically him trailing in a 5-out delay action or shooting and driving out of that. That's it. Like there is not anything in what's been designed as a Brunson-centric offense. And I think it's fair to critique that. I think you're seeing the limitations of that. And the inability to get a second star involved in the game is a result of that philosophy. And I think that's a very fair critique. And again, when Brunson was out, I think they tapped into some stuff that they need to kind of re-tap into here. And we'll see if they do it in game 3. And the last thing I'll say on the offensive side of the ball, the idea that they can't just run pick and roll against Tobias Harris, as if Tobias Harris is as if they're playing the Rockets and it's Amen Thompson and Dylan Brooks who are an automatic switch and you're not gaining any advantage. This is Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is not some renowned defender. In fact, Tobias Harris over the course of his career has been criticized as a below average defender. Now, I think he's probably around average. He's a physical dude. He rebounds well. He's strong. He moves okay. The idea that they can't just attack that in pick and roll and have to bring Josh Hart as the primary actor in a pick and roll because Duren's guarding him is crazy. And down the stretch of the game, all of a sudden they went to high pick and roll. They flattened everything out. They went 2 high, 3 low. Yeah, Duren's obviously shading well off of Hart in the paint, but you know what? Brunson can operate in the mid-range. Once you give him that little advantage, he can make stuff happen. He doesn't have to get all the way to the rim. And to me, it's like they ran a couple of them. Brunson got a little bit of a head start on Schroeder when Harris didn't switch, and he got a mid-range jumper out of it and made it. And then the second time Harris did switch, he pump faked him out of his shoes and got 3 shots. Mm-hmm. So Tobias Harris is not a defender we should be afraid of. So to me, it's like, I understand the advantages. I understand you want to attack the big. I understand that Duren's going to help off of the Cat Brunson pick and roll, which is why it's not ideal. But like, these are still your 2 guys. That action still needs to be your bedrock. You got to run it. And I'm hoping that the fact that they went to it late game is a sign for a game 3 adjustment where they're going to run a lot more of that stuff, even if it's at Tobias Harris.
Yeah, and just real quick before we transition maybe to the defense, Harris had trouble guarding Brunson last year in the Philadelphia series.
That's right.
Couldn't guard him in game 1. You mentioned the 2 possessions in game 2. He can't Brunson is going to get to a spot where you're going to get a good look if he's going to switch, and you're going to play one-on-one and try to create some space for him to operate. So I agree that they should absolutely try to attack Harris. I mean, the Knicks sometimes during the regular season got in trouble with sort of like mismatch hunting, but in the playoffs, I think it's a viable option here when the other options just aren't that good right now. And I think that's where we both agree.
Yeah, I mean, they've run so few of those pick and rolls. I don't even know what Harris's rote coverage is. Like, I don't even know what they're doing. Like, they've switched it a couple times. He's dropped a couple times. He's kind of been in between. Like, they haven't even tested him to the point where I don't even know what coverage he's in. That's nuts. This is your 1-5, your 2 stars. Run pick and roll with them. See what happens. That's your bedrock. Start there. The last thing I'll say before we transition, just like a small point to keep in mind. Sure. Where's Josh Hart positioned for? He's been on the wing a lot. And when he's on the wing, Duren is sitting. And it's easy for him to stay out of defensive 3 seconds. I know he got a few of them in game 1. But game 2, yeah. he was kind of above the free throw line, just sitting there because Hart's on the wing. And they actually got a layup out of Josh Hart in the dunker spot on a Brunson post up late in the game. I like to see him in the dunker a little bit more, a little bit less up top, because I think he's shading so high right now. There's no driving lane. I'm okay with him meeting Brunson near the rim where Brunson can maneuver in that mid-range area. Right now with Hart so high, I think he's clogging everything up. So that's just a small little note. I'd like to see Hart test out the dunker a little bit. Okay, let's move to the defensive side of the ball for the Knicks. My top observation is that both Cat. Let's talk about Cat first. Game 1, he was the best I've ever seen him in a hedge blitz coverage. Hands high, forced 4 different turnovers on Cade Cunningham by just all the way out on his blitz with his hands high, where Cade couldn't see anything, and if he tried to see something, Cat got a hand on it. Active hands for whatever reason. And I don't think they changed the coverage. It kind of looked like it at times. I don't think he was meant to be in like some pass drop or half drop. But even on plays where now Detroit did some things where they tried to get him behind. So they ran a screener action out of a timeout that Boston killed Cat with, and Cade got right through. So they're going to do some stuff to try to avoid that blitz that was so effective in game 1. But there were some just straight 1-5 pick and rolls where I cannot for the life of me understand why Cat sat back. And every time Cat sat back, Cade scored or got fouled. Every single time. So that's just an execution thing. He has to be on his P's and Q's. The second that Cade comes off that screen, you are out there with your hands high, because twice when he was low, not only did Cade score and get fouled, he found Duren on the roll, where Deuce McBride was on the weak side. Malik Beasley, who's too good a shooter to leave, it's hard to crash off of him, and Duren got lobs. And the only way to take that away realistically, especially with the lack of size that New York has on the back line, is Cat has to be really tall when he blitzes. And to me, that's the first thing. Like, You're right, they went more to the Brunson, and this is something I predicted in my game 1 grade. They were going to go more. They left a lot of meat on the bone with Brunson in game 1. They didn't attack him nearly enough. I knew they were going to do it more in game 2. They did. So we'll talk about Brunson next. But on Cat, did you see the same thing? Like, I just thought he was too passive in coverage.
Yeah, to me, it was almost like he was in between. So I think there's 2 things that was happening. One, Anunoby was much less effective getting Cade to his left hand. So I thought there was a couple of plays where it seemed like Cat wasn't sure which direction the screen was coming from. Game 1, Anunoby was so good of making sure Cade was shaded to his left hand that Cat could be in position. The one time they messed it up in game 1 where OG got beat late to allowed Cade to get to his right hand, Cat was on the wrong side and couldn't recover back. So I think that's part of it. But 2, I think more to your point, the play you're talking about, the Duren lob, I think that made it 92-90. I think it was right after the Knicks might have tied the game late. Cat was not quite dropping all the way, but he was almost like soft trapping where he was almost in no man's land. He wasn't impacting Cade, and he let Duren get behind him. Yep. And to me, because as you mentioned, Beasley's lifting at this point, so McBride can't be in low help.
There were two. There was one earlier in the game where Beasley was just staying in the corner.
Okay.
And even that is going to be a tough, like, Deuce is scared to leave him because Cade can hit that cross-court pass. We've seen him do it. And B, even if Deuce does crash, he's got a foot difference in terms of like what impact is he going to make? So there are 2 that Deuce was the tag guy. And on both, I thought Cat was just not nearly aggressive enough. And it's so strange because of all the success he had in game 1. Like what? I didn't understand what changed there. I don't think it was scheme.
I don't think it was scheme either. I thought Anunoby's a part of this too. I just thought, I don't know if it's fatigue or what. It just seemed like the whole defensive unit just wasn't as locked in, especially to try to minimize the impact Cade was providing. I didn't think any of them were as good as they were in game one. I think it all sort of trickled down because they impact each other, how they're defending. It's a team concept. It's not just CAD, it's OG, it's the tag, it's the gap help. It's all intertwined. None of them were as good. They were so lucky Detroit just missed a hell of a lot of shots. I think it would have been much worse. And then, maybe we get the Brunson part of it. We could touch on before we ask some questions.
What are you seeing there with Brunson? This one I have less of a solution for. Like I know what Cat needs to do, and I saw it in game one.
Yeah. So Brunson again, it's tough because it's been the same coverage all year. They're not going to switch him. He's going to try to slow down Cade as much as he can to allow OG to recover.
Well, let's start there though, DJ. Should they switch it?
I think two options need to be on the table: switch, and then just blitz the hell out of it, and just see because I think if you're going to give a guy like Cade Cunningham the same coverage with Brunson in the action every single time, it's going to be too easy. He knows he can probably beat Brunson to his right hand. He knows he has whether it's Beasley or it's Hardaway. He knows he has the shooting threat. There's too many options for him to pick apart. And then he's got Anunoby, who is now in scramble mode, a much easier matchup for him based on not being set. So I think you blitz it sometimes, and I think you switch it sometimes and just vary up the coverage a little bit. It can't be the same monotonous coverage that Brunson, frankly, isn't nailing anyway. So it's not like I don't think you're going to lose much. Maybe the variability is going to do enough to steal a possession or here or there. I don't know.
How crazy is it to suggest that Brunson start on either All-Star Thompson and get him off the shooter and ask Detroit to screen with their worst offensive player by a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Or, I'll get a little crazier, Tobias Harris.
Man. So I thought about Brunson Asar before game one, wondering if they're going to do that. I thought it was like Tibbs, knowing how his brain works, he was going to be so worried about Asar crashing from the corner and just getting 5 offensive rebounds and just getting away from it.
By the way, in the first Rockets game, not that the identical twins are the same person, but there are some similarities in their games, let's say.
Yeah.
Brunson was on Amen Thompson. I think Thompson had 8 offensive rebounds or something crazy. Like he had no chance. I think that is the worry. And I think it's
and then like Fontecchio got Brunson on 3 of them in one of the matchups, just crashing from the corner. So I think that's a concern. But listen, if you can get Asar Thompson to have to make a play in space, I think he has shown himself to be obviously a great defender. Offensively, he's had some moments in this series where it just seems like it's moving either too fast for him or the game is a little bit too physical for him right now. To make him have to make some plays in space, I think would actually be a worthy option for the Knicks. I actually think that's a really good idea. The Harris one, he's going to be popping into space unimpeded in the mid-range. He's a good mid-range shooter, and then you get the post up. Do the Knicks double? How do they react to that? Go ahead.
What I'll say, Brunson didn't have a good defensive game in game 2. The only good defensive moments he had, and there were a few of them in the fourth quarter, was fighting both Harris and Duren in the post and giving them hell. And we know that's like Brunson's best defensive trait is he's the fire hydrant, and you can't move him. Now that's not to say that Harris won't score over him, and it's not to say that the Knicks won't have to show some help. But I part of me is like, hey man, if I can keep Beasley and Hardaway from sprinting off these screens into space for threes, which I think they'll make more of for the rest of the series, they can't make less of them. I can force the offense a little bit to the Tobias Harris post ups. I don't know. It's a crazy thought. Probably it's definitely too out of the box for Tibbs, but it's interesting to me. Now Thompson's the more likely shift. The other thing I would say is, to prevent the whole thing totally is to try to scram switch out of those when it's not always possible, but sometimes it is possible when the shooter's coming up the screen and Bridges or Hart are somewhere in the vicinity to kind of read it and beat him to the spot so that all of a sudden you can just switch it and Brunson scrams off somewhere else, wherever the next guy is.
Yeah.
I would try to do a little more of that. The Knicks don't do that. They haven't done it all season. They don't do it well enough, and they should do it better because they have two guys who struggle in pick and roll defensive.
Well, that's the problem, right? They haven't done it.
Thing.
They haven't done it. So how would they execute it? But listen, it should be in your toolkit. Absolutely. I would like to see Brunson on Asar, put him on Holland if Holland's playing in game 3, bake it up a little bit. I think it's, as we're talking through this, if he's guarding one of those shooters, there's no good option for the Knicks. And I think,
and by the way,
he's reading it too well right now.
And in terms of the shooters, like when Brunson has guarded Hardaway or Beasley and they've come off those floppy actions or staggers, whatever they're coming off, he's struggled to stay with those guys, which it is what it is. Bridges, I think, has actually been excellent at chasing and contesting from behind on those threes. And he forced, some of them were bad misses, wide open catch and shoot. Some of them were Bridges, really good contests fighting over. That great possession in the fourth quarter where he drew the offensive foul on Duren. He chased Beasley around like 3 different times around the court in circles and before he drew that offensive foul. So as much as the Bridges on Cade question has been shaky and at times has felt hopeless, although I think he's gotten just enough stops where they can still switch it and feel okay. Otherwise, defensively, I think he's actually had a very strong series, Mikal. I think he's doing a really good job chasing shooters around and doing all that stuff. So that's I could see them making that shift and putting Brunson on Thompson. We'll see if they go that direction. All right. Anything else, Steve, before we get to these angsty Knicks fans?
Let's get to the angst.
I'm not making fun of them, and we're all angsty. It's an angsty time.
Angsty.
But any questions that our good dear Knicks fans have, we'll try to appease your souls, but we can't promise anything. All right, Kev. Kev's on the 1s and 2s, by the way. Kev's the man. Kev's wearing his Jalen Brunson hat. He's crushing it, and he's gonna pull up some questions for us. Let's do it. There he is.
What's up, Kev?
The clutch player of the year. The clutch player of the year is here.
He did it. He got it. You got it. But we're gonna roll the super chats first. But no, first we're gonna go to Frank Sound. He was early in the game with a question, and then we'll take it by here.
Sounds right, good. Do it. Frank Sound. Honest question, guys. Been wanting to ask all year. Oh, come on. This is how we're starting. Talk about angst. Better defender, Cat or Enes Kanter? Cat or Kent?
Oh, gosh. We have to go down this road.
Let me tell you something, Frank.
Go ahead.
Enes Kanter, if you watch the level of defense, let's take everything else out. Let's assume Cat never played any game except for his games against Nikola Jokic. The defense he's played on Nikola Jokic in his career, those 12 games in his career alone, probably more than that, make him a far better defender than anything. Enes Kanter has never accomplished anything within the realm of what Cat's accomplished on the best player in the world defensively, and that answers your question. That in of itself, he's a significantly better, more versatile defender than Enes Kanter. Good Lord.
Yes, Frank. Love you, buddy, but that's a rough one out of the gate. Got to get the vibes a little higher than that. Enes Kanter reference,
and it didn't see
2 minutes into the questions.
I didn't see Enes coming in here. All right, busy. Okay, Benjy, you said that the Knicks, have no idea what to run. Isn't that being prepared? Isn't that Tibbs' forte to have this team prepared? Yeah. I think it's fair to, and I already have, criticized Tibbs for the lack of game plan, the monotony of the offense, the Brunson centricism of the offense, as it were. I also think that there aren't any great answers right now. Like we're giving suggestions. I think there's stuff they can do to be better. But the Pistons are a very stout defensive team. And I guess the one thing we haven't talked about, Deej, is as long as Josh Hart is on the floor, it gives them a really easy way to clog everything up. And so, look, again, something we've talked about all season. Does Josh Hart need to play less? Does Deuce McBride need to play more, or campaign for that matter? I don't talk to me about Landry Shamet, but theoretically Landry Shamet, I guess. Like, I think if tomorrow night they come out and the offense looks the same with the personnel that they're currently playing and the minutes allocation as it is, you're down 2-1 to what should be an inferior team. You're going to have to look at a 5-out. You have to. I think the greatest criticism of Tibbs this season that holds the most water, and something we've been talking about all season long, is not even getting much of a look at the lineups without Hart. They haven't even played them very much. And to me, you have to make, at some point, if the offense can't find any traction, you're going to have to force Detroit to make an actual decision. They don't have to make any decisions right now. The coverages are obvious. At some point, Duren has to decide, am I guarding OG Anunoby? Am I guarding Mikal Bridges? Or am I just going to have to guard Cat? And the fact that he hasn't had to answer that question yet, and JB Bickerstaff hasn't had to answer that question yet, is wrong. Like, I think that's the wrong approach by Tibbs. And again, if Hart can't solve this, and if the team collectively can't solve it with Hart, they're going to have to go to that look. And if they don't, it's going to be a big problem.
Well, I think what's not going to happen is revisiting what happened in last year's playoffs where Josh Hart magically finds a 3-point jump shot. Like, that doesn't seem like it's happening this go around. So I thought, and this is I think the complexity of the issue, where I thought Josh Hart for a lot of game 2 was the one Knicks matching the aggression, physicality, the way the Pistons were playing.
I think Josh Hart's played really well this series.
Well, that's like, you've been on that theme where it's not so much how Josh Hart is playing, it's what his impact causes holistically to the Knicks offense. Right. It's not really about Josh Hart.
Overexposure versus underperformance is the way I like it. But like, Josh Hart is actually playing, I think, a really good series. I think he's all over the place. I think he's defending at a high level, at a higher level than we've seen all season. Like, he's locked in. And by the way, like, the idea that this Pistons team is huge. It's huge. So, like, you start moving Hart, they're already getting out rebounded. Now you bring in a Deuce, and I know the numbers say they're not a worse rebounding team with Deuce on the floor or whatever. Like, but in terms of the ability of Cade, who's shown he can post up Deuce pretty much at will, so you can't really switch that action either. Like, at some point, you're running out of guys who can switch onto Cade, and it makes it very easy for their offense. So I don't know. Yeah. But at the same time, again, if they lose this game, they're going to have to. The offense is failing, and you better find the plug before it's too late, and you're gonna have the desperation mode is gonna cause some changes,
Yeah. And last thing is, I thought while Hart played well, 40 minutes it's
crazy.
It was nuts. So, and I'm not quite Macri level in terms of my Josh Hart appreciation, but I'm pretty damn close, and I thought that was pretty egregious. So you got to try it. And
my craziest take is that PJ Tucker might get a look in this series.
What?
I'm not kidding.
You're not kidding.
I'm not kidding.
I'm scared.
I'm not saying yet. I'm saying at some point it might happen. That's all I'm saying. Because I'll tell you why. I'm not. There's a logic to it. I'm not just saying that. First of all, guy played great in that one game. I mean, it was he did. Second of all what you're missing, and God, I was thinking about this watching the Lakers last night, and my dream target all season, Dorian Finney-Smith, who the Lakers somehow plucked for nothing early in the year. They need so badly a wing with size, like so badly. Someone who they don't have to worry about post-ups against. They don't. I mean, switching on to Cade may be a tall ask for the 45-year-old PJ Tucker, but someone that size-wise and then that you can't just like ignore in the corner. I'm just saying. Saying.
Yeah, he would be ignored in the corner though. Let's be honest, he would be ignored in the corner.
So he'll knock down that crazy calibrated jumper that he has.
I guess he might.
I'm just saying when it happens,
man. We're down bad if we're going PJ Tucker right now. I was waiting for the punchline, and you brought logic into it, and it wasn't crazy.
I'll take PJ.
And I'm not saying it's nuts.
I'll take PJ over Shamit. That's all I'm saying. Who may never enter this. He may never play for this team again. I'm just saying. Anyway,
Busy. Thank you.
Thank you, Busy. Go ahead.
Busy again. All right, I'll take this one. This is X's and O's, and who has more agency to change the scheme than the X's and O's than the coach? Lots of talk about what the players could be doing better. Haven't heard much from KFS about scheme, personnel, lineup. Okay, and now I'm retracting my last super chat. Loving the critique tonight. It's fair and equal, unlike last playback where it was all players' fault.
I really I'll get on my soapbox for a second. Can you guys separate Jonathan Macri from the rest of us? Now, I am a bigger Macri fan than anybody. I love Macri. That's why I'm here. I love him. I think he's the best who does what he does. And he has a position, and I respect him for that position. He loves Tibbs, and he does it. And by the way, he also critiques Tibbs, but he's reluctant to do so, and he does it less than others. Why does that make me a Tibbs shill? Does that make you a Tibbs shill, DJ? What is this?
I mean, it might. I don't know.
Why am I just looped into the Macri stuff? Now, in many ways in life, I would love to be looped into Macri stuff. I want to be associated with the man, Jonathan Macri. But I am sick and tired of just being assumed that I feel exactly the same way about Tibbs as he does. I'm sick and tired of it. And Busy, it starts with you, but it's not just you. It's all you Twitter commenters. I'm sick of it. I'm done with it.
Busy. Do not lump my friend Benjy in there. He gets very upset about this. You got to start to separate it. I think Benji's been completely fair when it comes to the Tibbs. Critiqued him more than I have. If you want to say one person on the screen is a shill for Tibbs, it's me. But I think we've generally been fair to the coach.
We critique him all the time.
I mean,
what else are we doing?
I think there is a reflex of going your priors when things are happening to your favorite team that you don't like. Whatever the thing was that you assumed was going to be a problem, you're going to lean on that. I think this is a front office on down issue. Knicks don't have capable ball handlers outside of Jalen Brunson. That's a big problem against a team that is going to apply that amount of pressure on you. That's a front office thing. It's a Tibbs thing for the monotony and the bland sort of offense that he's running. It's a Jalen Brunson thing. It's a Towns thing. It's a Bridges, and it's all of it. And the criticism is,
my thing is always players have agency. So no matter what the scheme is, no matter what the coach says, now you're not going to go against the coach's scheme. But I'm always anti, and I feel like it comes. We don't have to get all philosophical about it, but all I'm trying to say is players have agency, so you can always look at both. And I think that there is a tendency to err on the side of just blaming the coach when and players are treated as though they're just like the pieces on the chessboard that the coach is moving around, and they're not pieces on a chessboard. They actually can move themselves. And I think that's what frustrates me about the analysis. But I don't think that makes me. And let me while I'm here, I'm going to criticize Tibbs a little more. Campaign should not be benched in the second half. You need Campaign, not just because he was great in game one, but because you actually need somebody who can shoot above the break threes once in a while. And his change of pace and his energy is important to this team. He's not as good as Dennis Schroeder, but you see what Dennis Schroeder just did for the Pistons as a secondary ball handler? Like, he's not as good. Dennis Schroeder's like a really high level point guard, and like obviously I'm not expecting Campaign to make the biggest shots of our season down the stretch of a game. But the idea that he should just be benched in the second half, because I don't even know what he necessarily did wrong in the first half, but just because you feel like Jalen Brunson, like, you need Campaign a few minutes. You just do. I think it's important for this team. So that bothered me, that decision.
Yep, and he's been, I think, fine enough on defense the entire year. So if it's a defensive issue, I don't think he gets exposed. Defensive issue,
that means Brunson's playing more.
Well, yeah, that's the right. So I agree with you. 4 minutes in game 2 was pretty wild for Campaign. Thank you, Busy.
Go ahead, Deej.
Matt G. What's up, Matt? Thank you for checking in with us. Yes, the D was lacking game 2, but this team was put together to be a great offense. has been below average post All-Star break. How do you split the blame pie? It's kind of it's been a little theme of this show a little bit, right? So where does the blame go? I think Matt's point, we were talking about a top 1, top 2 offense from basically start of the year through December. And then post January 1st, granted Brunson absence lumped in there, it's been kind of a mediocre. I wouldn't say mediocre offense, but like when Brunson has been playing, it's been more of a top 12, 13 offense versus a top 5 offense. And that is a huge drop off from earlier in the year. I think Tibbs deserves some blame. I mentioned the front office. We're talking about campaign and Shamet, and even, quite frankly, Deuce McBride as being like integral parts of like how this team is going to generate offense. And this team doesn't have another guy other than Jalen Brunson to create any gravity on the ball. Zero. Cat does it sometimes. We talked about that screen that Brunson set for him in game 2. But generally speaking, Cat is not a guy that's going to be drawing a ton of help and then he's not spraying that ball out for driving kicks. So that's a problem. And then it's just, it's Bridges hasn't been quite the player we thought he was going to be on offense. His numbers look good. I think if you would have said he was going to average about 17 on good efficiency, you'd be, I'd sign up for that, but it hasn't looked that good when you watch him play. So it is a very complicated issue.
And he's certainly not drawing any help. I'll tell you that much.
And you mentioned that when he's on the ball, he's trying to get to that pull up. And it started after the Clipper game where he destroyed the Clippers on mid-range jump shots. Teams started to play drop against him, but a little bit higher. So instead of a 17-foot jump shot, it's now 20. And that on the margins is going to make it a much less efficient shot.
And he can't beat it to the rim.
Right.
Like the counter against centers playing higher against you is you should be able to get by them, but he can't. That's problematic for a guy you traded this many picks for, but that's neither here nor there. Continue.
Yeah. So, man, can you, at this point, like, is there a great offense? Like the way we talk about this team, and it's like, how do they generate enough offense to outscore the Detroit Pistons? And we've given proper credit to the Pistons, but I think it does speak to like where we are with this offense, that we're just trying to figure it out. How do they grind out enough points to beat the Pistons when this team was, for a decent part of the year, one of the very best offenses in all of basketball? So it's a crazy drop from that high in December to where we are now. It really is.
And look, one of the reasons this has happened, and again, players have agency. Like Josh Hart was a willing and good 3-point shooter for the first half of the year. And he allowed this coverage to get in his head. And there was a period where he just stopped shooting them altogether, which emboldened teams to do it even more. And now we're at a point where, like, I don't think he wants to shoot it. I think he's actually purposefully not putting him in situations where he has to shoot it, because theoretically he should be wide open for 3 on every play, but he's not. And that's because he's trying to find, like, pin-in screens and cuts, because he doesn't want to catch the ball on the perimeter, because he has absolutely no interest in taking a 3. And now Tibbs needs to react to that. That's where the blame goes on the coach. That is what it is. He's not going to, as you said, DJ, we're not getting a Sixers round 1 3-point barrage from Josh Hart. It's just not, it's gone. It's not happening. So how do you adjust? And how do you move off of it and find other lineups that might work here? I feel like, again, there's a lot of angst and nerves here. I am not even close to saying this series is in any way over. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if the Knicks won game 3. I think the Knicks will win game 3 if I had to guess. And I think we've talked about some of the ways I think they can loosen things up. I think just actually we talk about how simple Tibbs' offense is. In some ways, I want to simplify it even more. Run 1-5 pick and roll and see what happens. Like, start the game with 10 straight 1-5 pick and rolls. Make the Pistons react to that. I feel like there's meat on the bone. I think they have some buttons to push. They might not be as easy as the Pistons ones, but I think the overall talent still exceeds the Pistons talent. And so I feel like the team has solutions and ways to win. but they're going to have to make adjustments, and it's going to be a big test for the coaching staff and for the players to solve this puzzle. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yep, I agree. Matt, appreciate you checking in, man. Thank you.
Drew P. Benji, if you want Josh in the dunker spot, then why not just go to Mitch? Good question. That's very fair. Well, I do want to go to Mitch. I think Mitch has played a pretty decent series so far. I think he's made an impact in games. And I guess he just doesn't give you the same kind of versatility that Hart gives you. I mean, that's discounting the good things that Josh Hart does as a basketball player, and he's doing them a lot. Like his rebounding, Mitch obviously also gives you rebounding, but the way his ability to just get loose balls out on the floor, his passing, his playmaking, even out of the dunker, like a pass goes to the dunker doesn't mean the shot's going up. If it goes to the dunker to Mitch, it's going up. There's not a next play. If it goes to the dunker to Hart, he might find a corner shooter. He might make the next pass. Transition, the way he can. They need his transition. They need to get out and run a little bit, and he activates that part of their game. So I want both. I want Josh Hart in there. I want Mitch in there. And I think they both do different things well. And I think they're both important. They're two of the top 7 players on this team. So they're both going to play a role.
Yeah, and Mitch in the dunker, he does have more gravity. You've seen Duren just be a little more reluctant to vacate Mitch in the dunker versus whomever. I think Hart included. It's a different level of a threat when Mitch is there, especially if it's Mitch in the dunker versus Hart space to the corner where he's actively ignored. Mitch in the game in the dunker is a real threat, and I think you've seen. I don't know if the Knicks have really capitalized on it, but you've seen the Pistons have a tougher decision there about sending help to the Towns post up. Now the issue is, how does Towns sort of take advantage of where that double is coming from? Because you're not going to flash Mitch to the middle off that. And unless you're Jokic, you're not. That pass from post up behind your head to the opposite dunker is a pass literally Jokic is the only one in the NBA that can make. So maybe if he faces, he can have a better look at it. But I think Mitch is a threat in the dunker spot regarding the cat post up. I just haven't seen the Knicks really take advantage of it. And I think it's a Mitch lack of skill set, and then Towns not being able to truly get that ball to Mitch if Duren is doubling or Stewart is doubling off him there.
Yeah, that's the old Julius Randle Atlanta series all over again, right? Post up with Mitch trying to find some space on the dunker, but the Capella just standing there waiting, and there's no. It's tough,
yeah.
And that's where they missed the Hartenstein cut. The Hartenstein cut was such an important part of their offense last year, where he flashes from that dunker to that short little floater range shot. Now Hart can do that, and probably should, and he can make a little floater, a little pull up from 6-7 feet.
But he's going from the right side. It's a tougher shot going because Towns is more or less going to post up from the left block.
Yeah.
So if
that's fair,
if Josh is flashing to the middle, it's across his body. So I don't know. It's tough. And you mentioned Hartenstein, like just how my heart just sank.
I know it's tough, man.
It's just so good.
It just sucks so much. It sucks so much. Ben Kingervy. Guys, can you point me to 1 or 2 things each rotation player can do to improve our chances? Wow. Okay. I see a lack of movement and space creation. Yeah, I guess we could do that. Let's do this, DJ. I'm just going to list a player, and you're going to go first and say one thing, and I'll say another thing. Jalen Brunson.
Okay. 1 or 2 things that can do to improve our chances. I think
you do one, I do the second.
Okay, so I think if he's going to be in a coverage that is going to require him to hedge, fully recover, he's got to be just better at slowing Cade's momentum down. He can't let Cade get outside his foot with a basic free rein to get into space. He has to, and it's tough when the guy's 225 pounds in Cade Cunningham, but you have to slow him down. If you can get him to pick up the dribble, that's obviously best case scenario, but just slow him down. Give your guy in, it'll be a chance to recover.
Man, one play that's on top of mind right now is he actually executed it one time, and he got all the way out there, and Cade made this filthy spin with one hand to split Anunoby Brunson. Oh man, is that filthy?
That was tough.
And look, it's hard. It's a hard job. And I was going to criticize him for that play. And then I'm like, you know what? That's a hell of a move. And if anything, Anunoby lost touch because that split probably should be prevented by Anunoby even more than it should be by Brunson. But he was screened off pretty hard. Yeah, it's a tough job. Yeah, so that's one thing. The other I'd say for Brunson is look for Cat. When Cat does pop open, it's an automatic pass. There is not a shot that the Knicks can take that is a better shot than a Karl-Anthony Towns catch and shoot three. And if at any point, which happened in the second quarter, Karl-Anthony Towns is open for catch and shoot three, and you take a mid-range jumper, you are failing as a point guard. You have to make that pass. That's Brunson. Mikal Bridges, go.
Mikal Bridges, I think he is allowing Cade's physical advantage to almost dictate the action too much. So there was one play baseline where Cade's going baseline and Bridges sort of opens up and basically escorts him to the rim. And now Cade is so strong that he's probably going through his hip regardless, but I feel like Bridges is almost allowing the blow by before it even occurs. He had one in game one. I felt like he fouled him on almost the same baseline drive before he even got to the rim, to the point where it's almost like he doesn't consider himself a worthy defender in these actions against Cade Cunningham. I think in those cases, he has to be a little better. You can't ask OG Anunoby to not have a switch partner on the floor because I think it's just too much for him to manage this. Game two, I felt like he was exhausted by the end of it and showed on film the way he defended. It wasn't as good. So I think that's probably the one thing for Bridges he needs to maybe clean up a little bit.
Make above the break threes. That's the other thing, which who knows?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about Bridges. If he made a couple of those, the whole narrative would have been completely different.
Yeah. I actually think Bridges has had a decent series. I'm not, I just think he needs to make a couple more threes. Okay. Anunoby. You already touched on it. Maybe that counts, but you can do something else if you want.
Yeah. I mean, I think the game plan was so great in game one. You have to just be, you have to be perfect with getting Cade to his left hand as much as possible. And then on offense, that's where because he hasn't played well on offense. And I know he had a really great start to game one, but he couldn't sustain it. It's like, what could I say to, because he lacks the sort of dexterity, ball handling that we've seen against these great teams. In Detroit defensively, I think you would put in that category too, where it's just tough for him to generate any offense with the ball in his hands in a half court setting. If it's not a mid-range, tough contested shot, it's really not happening. So can you find some avenues as a cutter in transition? I know he's got a lot going on in terms of the defensive requirements, but transition and cutting are the two ways he can get easy points. I feel like he needs to maybe seek some of those out.
Yep. Get yourself to the free throw line the way you were when Brunson was out. Just a couple of times a game would make a big difference, whether that's in semi-transition, just using your physicality to go at somebody, your sweep throughs that you seem to have generated overnight. Find a way to give a little bit more offensively. I don't think he needs to give a lot more offensively because I think his job this series is a defensive one. But just try to give a little bit more on that end. Okay. Josh Hart.
So I think he's been in actions as a screener, but I haven't felt him as a roller, which was actually a good scenario for the Knicks. So I think if he can maybe, especially if they're going to switch screen low on his man, on Brunson's man, and try to get behind the switch and get into space and maybe generate some 4-on-3 advantages. I feel like Josh Hart rolling into some advantageous situations has really not been part of the offense in games 1 and 2. That is an area he's really good at, especially as a passer and even as a shot maker getting downhill. Like to see more of that.
He's got to finish. And again, like we talked, first half of the year, he couldn't miss at the rim. And maybe this is just the minutes load.
The knee. He's had some knee issues. Yeah.
He has not been nearly as good finishing second half of the year. And man, he's ignored. So when he gets a catch and he missed one to key off a baseline, a sideline out of bounds, it was a tough pass from Anunoby to McBride, who somehow caught it and found Hart cutting. He had a point blank layup, and like Duran maybe got a decent contest. He missed the layup, and the Pistons were off. I think they got a free on the other end, if I'm not mistaken. He has to finish. He has to. Like you got to give some scoring. And if it's not going to be a 3-ball, then it's got to be at the rim, and you just got to get back to your finishing game. Maybe it's too much to ask. I don't know if he has it in him physically, but like, look, that's what he needs. That's what he needs to do. Cat.
Well, we've talked about the post-ups being a huge piece of how he can generate some offense. You know, he had the one DHO keep where he got downhill. I think that was early in game 2 for a dunk, or that might, I don't know. They're starting, the games are starting to blur together.
First quarter,
game 2, right? Yeah. He's really good with the ball in his hands, not only as a passer facing up, but also as a driver. We've seen some drives, especially against Harris, where it's looked good, but maybe you can, and that's part Tibbs too, like draw up some like zoom actions with him as the DHO hub and see if you can get some things going downhill for Cat off that, because he'll get 1 or 2 of them. If you can really give him the volume, he'll fake that DHO 1 or 2 times and get downhill and get an advantageous drive. So maybe get him into those situations could be beneficial.
I talked about his defense, just getting back to game 1, aggression in the blitz. Like you got to do that. On the offensive end, I'd say hit someone on a screen because he hasn't been doing that at all. And beginning of the year, I talked about like what would unleash the Cat Brunson pick and roll. One of the things I said was you got to sometimes hit the dude. Like he is content. His gravity is so great that even if he doesn't hit anyone, he just kind of like backtracks out of the screen and pops. It can create room for people. But like against this aggressive defense, one of the best things you can do is lay somebody out on a screen so Brunson actually gets some breathing room. I'd like to see him a little bit better and more disciplined as a screener.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe we could rapid fire because we are up against time on this one.
Deuce.
I mean, he just has to. He made a couple of shots. For him, it's just the shot making and don't let a guy reject a screen and get downhill on you. That's his only bugaboo on the defensive end. He hasn't really had a great opportunity, but it's all about, do the shots go in or not? I know his value is based on his spacing as a baseline floor, but the shot has to go in as well. And he got lucky on a couple in game 2, one off the backboard. I think he just has to make some shots.
Yeah, game 2 is better than game 1. I think he's on the upward trajectory. I loved his little up and under move. A little support as a ball handler goes a long way. That was a really nice move. So yeah, just keep playing, get some buckets. Next, is that it? There are no more.
Campaign. Mitch.
Campaign. Play more. Let's talk Mitch. Go Mitch quickly.
Mitch,
and then we'll move to the next
quickly. I mean, I think Mitch has had a really nice series. It's tough for me to come up with one thing that I think he can improve. You know, he had the short roll disaster in game 2 where he didn't know what the hell to do with the ball. Josh Hart cutting into no man's land, just in one of those like scenarios where why he got the ball where he did. The Pistons were allowing it. I don't have a great one for Mitch, because I feel like he's nailed the things that you thought he was going to need to do in the offensive rebounding, impacting as a screen defender. So I don't have maybe you have one. I don't have a great Mitch.
I would say there was only one negative play I thought in that game. Tobias Harris came off a screen and roll with Duren. It was Cat at the 4 and Mitch at the 5, and they're guarding this Harris Duren screen and roll. And Mitch is in drop, and he somehow let Harris get a right-hand layup over him and score. And I was like, that can't happen. Like Tobias Harris can't make layups. So just a little tighten it up defensively. All right, that's it. Next question. Thank you, Ben. PR Claudio. Pastor Claudio.
Pastor DJ. Claudio, what's going on?
PR. Pastor Claudio, the great one. Oh, DJ, it's for you. Go ahead.
What happened to the iHeart blind pig stuff? There's no iHeart. That's one. They had an opportunity. It was in game 1 where Mitch caught it with the back cut and just didn't even look to the weak side for it. I forget who was who the guard was that cut back door, but it wasn't even part of the equation for Mitch to even look in that way. I don't know. You know, you sort of prioritize certain things based on the personnel, and it was a decent source of offense, of just advantage creation for Brunson last year when you were sort of searching for ways to get him downhill into some space and some drives momentum wise. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's iHeart not being here is a big piece of it, and that you theoretically have all these like higher level offensive players. You don't need to have these sort of like triangle-esque movement actions built into the system because you have other ways to generate points. But yeah, every so often, if you're getting overplayed, and this Piston team really does overplay and try to top lock a blind pig going back door, which I think could be a way to steal a basket or two. So yeah, I would like to see it more. It's one of my favorite plays.
I would be interested in Josh Hart as the blind picker, as it were, because Duran's on him and he's shading so far off. So if you could use that dead corner and just, if you could clear the side, chuck it to Hart in that dead corner, so the weak side corner, and have either Brunson or Deuce or Payne or whoever, a shooter, a movement shooter, coming off behind him, that might be a nice way to generate some space for a shooter because nobody's near Hart. And so he's blind pig adjacent, but to have Hart activate as the dead corner guy might be interesting. Thank you, Pastor Claudio.
Thank you, sir. Busy. What's going on, Busy? Been asking since the game ended. No one can explain this. What was with that weird lineup Tibbs tried when he had Mitch standing in the corner for 2 straight possessions?
Is this the lineup with the Cat-less, Brunson-less lineup that he played for a couple of minutes, which was like the first time?
Yeah, that was
It was
weird.
odd.
Yes, very odd. I think
Don't have
I
an
was
answer.
doing the playback with Macri. We're both like, "What? This is to have both your guys out." I know it was only 2 straight possessions, but like, why? I don't have an answer for that one.
I don't either, and you shouldn't do it again. Thanks, Busy.
Yes.
Busy again. Why is he experimenting in the playoffs when he was rigid with his lineup during regular season? Also, Cat was great running PNR with Rudy in mini. I don't know why. Again, I don't know that lineup is a mystery to me. I don't know why he did that. Cat was great running PNR. I don't know how many they ran. I think they created offense in other ways. I think Rudy as a screener off the ball for Cat. I don't know how much actual pick and roll the two of them ran in Minnesota. I don't think it was a ton.
I don't think it was a ton either, but he would get like Rudy would get a lob or two every so often from Cat. So they had some like high value assists. I don't think it was.
But hey, man, I'm down. You know what? Mitch and Cat are in the game. You want to run a pick and roll for Cat? Let's do it. DJ, you talked about Cat as the DHO guy in the Zoom action. How about Cat as the guy running off the Chicago action? Like, let's get him moving. I don't care. He can drive through Tobias Harris. You just got to give him a little inch.
Well, Oklahoma City is running that. Yeah, they're running it for Chet Holmgren, and Cat's got all the skills that Chet has. So why not?
Into that. Let's get him on the move, Biz. I'm with you. Thank you very, very much, Busy, for all the contributions. You're the best. GMAC.
What's up, Benjy?
Apparently, you guys missed the Macri clause in the KFS handbook, where all tips, criticisms the rest of us give are nullified. I'll email it over. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, we are going to. We're going to need to reread the handbook, obviously. Because,
I never got like an official KFS orientation, so I don't think I got the handbook. So I'm going to have to read that, sign off on it. I don't know.
HR at KFS is a disaster.
It really has been.
It's actually been voted one of the 5 worst companies to work for in the country, and rightfully so. I don't know whose fault that is. I have some thoughts, but we'll get to it after the show. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. Okay.
Why don't we run OG off screens more? Deej?
Yeah, it was a nice source of offense last year. Like OG off the Chicago zoom, getting downhill to his right hand, like you can get him into some advantageous situations there. They actually ran some away screens for him this year where he would be on the left corner and he would come up and he would get a catch and shoot 3 from the left wing or the left slot. And I wouldn't mind seeing that. He has been the one willing above the break shooter on the team that's been pretty sustainable this year. So yeah, some drives, there's always a ceiling on the drives for OG against great teams or great defenses. So you always have to manage that, but I think you can get him off screens as a shooter now. I feel like going to his right, he's actually a pretty effective shooter when he get his feet set. So I think that's a fair thought, Jeffrey.
Yeah, they were running a ton of pin downs for him when Brunson was out. Got him a lot of looks at the rim. I do think, again, you have like the Duran just looming in the paint at all times as a obstacle to any of these types of actions, unless you change the lineup. But that is what it is. And I don't know how much OG is going to provide as a driver in traffic. In fact, I think that OG gets himself in trouble as a driver in traffic. So what can you kind of create for him? But yeah, there's probably some meat on the bone there in terms of trying to open up OG a bit. He's been very quiet offensively, and he made a couple of really tough mid-range jumpers in the second half.
It's been a lot of isolation for him in terms of the shot diet. Probably too much.
He hasn't found much. Hasn't found much opening. He just hasn't. Maybe look, and by the way, maybe posting Cade and making Cade work. I know Cade's tough down there, but OG's bigger, and trying to get Cade in foul trouble is not a bad idea. So, some one of those OG likes to kind of seal early in transition. If he contests a Cade 3 and he's out, let's get the ball to him and let him work down there. Maybe draw a foul on Cade. That's a good idea too. So yeah, I think I'm all for getting OG a little more involved. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sean with the dubs. Oh man, how you doing, Sean? Hope all's well, man. JB on Tobias is a Jedi mind trick I'd be all in for. Look, I threw out like Mozgov in the 65 against the Dubs. Yes. That's a great callback, Sean. Yeah, look, I have now both said that JB should guard Tobias Harris, and I have said that PJ Tucker might get a look in the series. So my hot takes are all spent, and I'll let DJ take it.
Yeah, and so just so I'm clear, this is more of help me sort of contextualize the question regarding Tobias Harris. Is he saying JB should be able to defend him in that?
Yeah, I said earlier that one idea would be for JB to actually guard Tobias and force the offense. So the Jedi mind trick I think Sean's referring to is like they think they have to go post up Tobias. The offense gets away from Cade. Okay. That's the idea.
I think that's always sort of a trouble area for teams when you're hunting matchups. And the Knicks have fell prey to this with like your third, fourth best offensive player because they theoretically have this advantage you want to take advantage of. So I think certainly it would push the Pistons to go there. And they've posted up Harris against Josh Hart a few times in the series, a good post defender. So they like Harris in those areas of the floor with some space to work. I think it would probably not go great for Jalen Brunson, but if you're telling me that there is a pretty low ceiling on what an offense is going to generate with Tobias Harris sort of running your offense in the post, I think that's a completely fair and reasonable take. Now, it's like always the trade-offs are like, does Jalen Brunson have it in him to fight 5-6 times with Tobias Harris?
That's a lot of work for him. That's a lot of work for him. Yeah, it's a very fair point. Although the counter would be running around 4 screens on Beasley and Hardaway.
It's all hard. It's all hard for him. I do feel sometimes watching him defend, and he's always like the effort is always there. So I'm never like questioning that, but I'm always wondering like, it seems like he has to work extra hard to sort of get to a passable level. And it's just a lot to ask considering what he is also doing on the offense. I mean, he's up to over 101 touches per game on offense. It was 84 per game in the regular season. Yeah.
Here's a suggestion. Chill on offense a little bit. And like,
he has no chill. He has no chill.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I thought you could chalk up that Schroeder 3 at the end of a game, which was his fault. Like, that was an easy switchback because he had switched on to Harris. Hart was on Schroeder, but then they rescreened it. So it's like, okay, now get back to your man because they just allowed you to get back to your man. They could have posted up Harris on him. They chose to rescreen it. He's got to jump back out on Schroeder. He just didn't. And like, that's a terrible mistake in that scenario. And he knows it. But like, he's also played the whole fourth quarter because Tibbs is a madman and had been running every single play for the offense. And like, at some point that catches up to you, and it might catch up to you at the worst possible time, even if he is the clutch player of the year. And even if he did make a lot of clutch buckets in that game, he's not going to nail it every time when you are asked to do everything. So it's both on him and the coach to maybe ease the offensive burden a little bit so that he can do a difficult defensive job that he has to do to make this defense work. And he's going to be asked to do a lot.
Completely fair.
Thank you,
Thank you, Sean. All right. H22. What's up, H22? How you doing? Thank you so much for checking in. Why do you guys think we always start off the third quarter bad? This has been a thing since Tibbs was hired.
I don't think statistically that's true.
Yeah.
Now,
that's
I have to look, but I don't think it's statistically the case that they're a bad third quarter team, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, this year I think they were, but I don't think it's always been the case. Anyway, we can answer the question anyway as if it's true.
I don't know. How do you, so assuming it is true, like, I don't think the issue is Tibbs is not sort of providing them with enough potential adjustments or information during the halftime period. I don't know. I don't have a great answer because I don't know what their process is behind the scenes to either be prepared or unprepared to sort of go out in these third quarters. It could be just a randomness of basketball and a coincidence that is not really something you can replicate over multiple seasons, which is probably why, if I had to guess, you'd see teams sort of fluctuate in this category, specifically coming out after halftime in terms of how well they perform. So I unfortunately,
like the 17
I don't have a great answer.
Unless you're like the 17 Warriors and you won by 30 in the third quarter every time. I do think there's some credence to this, and I'll say two things about it. Number one, the starting lineup, which plays the majority of the third quarter, is like not that good. It hasn't been that good all year. Like, it's a good lineup. The Knicks' best lineups all year long have been their Towns plus bench guys lineups that have dominated teams all year. The lineup, the starting lineup's like whatever, +5 per 100 possessions. It's like a good, not great lineup. And against really good competition, maybe it's not even a good lineup. I don't know. That's statistically, I'm not sure I really believe that fully, but it's not a great lineup for sure. And Tibbs is very reluctant to sub people out. And we have seen that happen in the third quarter where it's like, okay, it's not working. Like, make a move early in the third quarter. And I think this last game 2 was a great example. They scored 4 points in the first 6.5 minutes of the third quarter, I think. And you in the playoffs probably need to be quicker on the trigger in terms of making a move when things look that sluggish and that bad. And so I think it's a combination of the starting lineup not being the Knicks' best lineup and also a unwillingness to transition quick enough to take you out of that stupor when you're in it to start the third.
Fair critique. And, the question, I assume this has been his MO, and I don't think it's been multiple seasons of not performing well in the third quarter, but you do have to adjust to the personnel. So if he is not, and we know this about him, he's reluctant to adjust in terms of the guys he trusts. So he's always going to err on the side of they'll figure it out, or the options I have to replace them are going to either, are going to compound the issue, make it worse. I think that's where his head is. And it's a fair critique to wonder why he's not quicker to adjust on that. Thank you, H22.
All right. I think that is it for the chats. And so before we say goodbye, I do want to promote the following event coming up this coming Sunday, April 27th, 12:30 p.m. This is game 4. There will be a Knicks Film School playoff watch party at T-Squared Social. The game tips off at 1 p.m. Free admission to the great T-Squared Social. I know, Deej, you haven't had a chance because you don't live in New York to attend one of these. Maybe one day you will. Maybe one day we'll meet and I'll give you a nice hug.
That would be one. That would be a great moment for me. I would love that.
Yeah, me too. But until that point, I can vouch for the venue. It is awesome. It's just awesome. It's a great place to watch a game. It's a great place to bring your family. It's fun. There's a lot to do. There's bowling and there's Pop-A-Shot and there's golf simulators and there's all sorts of fun and games and a gazillion televisions and a wonderful bar in case you want to partake in some alcoholic beverages or non-alcoholic beverages. I'm sure they have those too. I haven't tried them, but it is a great spot. It's a lot of fun. Game 4. Hopefully we're going to try to be going up 3-1. We'll see. Either way, it'll be a very important game, and there will be angst and there will be nerves, and you should share it with your peers and your friends. So if you are in the area, please come to T-Squared Social on Sunday at 1 p.m. or before, slightly before. You come hang out before and join us for a wonderful watch party. It's going to be a great time. We'd love to see all of you there. We'd love to meet all of you who I haven't met yet. And we're looking forward to it.
I will say it's always nice. Win or lose, to sort of watch these big games with fellow fans. I think it's obviously enhances the win, and I think makes the loss just a little less hurtful because you can always commiserate with your brethren. So absolutely check it out. I'm jealous that I have not been to one. I will get to one soon. But enjoy, go meet your favorite KFS personalities. This guy, Benjy, obviously included in that. And then the last thing I'll say is thank you, Kevin, for throwing that up. Check out our Patreon. I think Benjy and I and Macri and Andrew, we're all doing great work there. Benjy, you'll have your Game 2 grade book up shortly. I think you do. I'm not just saying this. I've said this to you offline as well. No one is doing the work you're doing with those. I think you can literally not watch the game, read your grade book, and have a perfect encapsulation of what that game was, player to player, game film, summary of each guy. You talk about why you gave the grade that you gave. It's great work. So hats off to you. I'm a big fan of it as a fan of the sport, fan of basketball. So you do a great job. And then I'll have film work out on Game 2 likely tomorrow, and then a Game 3.
Also great. The film work is also great.
Thank you. Also a Game 3, something or another, mailbags. I think we're doing a lot of good stuff there. So give us a check out.
Yes. Join the Patreon. And for more work and discussion like this, I think you'll find that it'll be worth your while. So thank you all for tuning in. Really, we appreciate it. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star rating wherever you are listening. Join the Patreon. If you like what you heard here, there's more of it. We're doing. This is the hardest work we do all year. We're all over it. The playoffs is our time, man. We're all in, and we're doing it every day. So thank you all for joining. This has been another edition of the Knicks Film School X's and O's live show / podcast presented by Fanatics, I think. And we appreciate y'all. Have fun tomorrow night watching the game. Be angsty with each other. Have fun. Talk to y'all soon. See ya.